Hi, I'm Representative Alana Rubel, the House Democratic leader, and this is the Democratic Debrief, where we bring you up to speed on what's happening at your Statehouse this week. We just recessed here in the House at just about midnight last night. The Senate adjourned sine die, which means they completely wrapped up for the year. The House merely recessed, which means we can come back anytime we feel like it. This has never happened in Idaho's history, where the two chambers did a completely different plan at the end of the session for each other. Not quite sure how that works out with the Constitution, so a little experimental there. But we didn't exactly end on a great note. The one thing that we really hoped would happen was that there'd be a vote on Senate Bill 1193, which is the bill for $6 million in funds to establish pre-K programs throughout the state. Folks have been working on this for years. It is very badly needed in communities across Idaho. Would have cost Idaho taxpayers nothing. It was just a federal grant, and they refused to vote on it. And ultimately, they left last night without voting on 1193, which means we've effectively turned away $6 million for early childhood education. Indescribably disappointing. But the thing is, since we've recessed, it's still on the board. So I suppose if we came back into session in June, it's possible we could still vote on it because it's still there. So I would say don't relax that advocacy yet, because maybe they'll crack if we come back and we'll vote on it. Just going to do a really quick summary of the session, and apologies if I sound frustrated, because I am very frustrated. This session had so much potential. We headed into this session with a record budget surplus, more in the rainy day fund than we'd ever had, more federal money coming in than the state had ever seen. This really could have been the year that we did really big things to help the state of Idaho. It could have been the year we finally got full-day kindergarten, which has been a top recommendation by task forces and educators forever. It would really meaningfully improve literacy. They dropped the ball on that. It could have been the year we finally got early childhood education. They rejected the funds for that. It could have been the year we finally restored the funding to higher education, which never recovered from recession-era cuts of more than a decade ago. Instead, they cut the higher education budget and restricted academic freedom by trying to clamp down on social justice teachings and critical race theory. This could have been the year we did something real about property tax relief. Instead, they rammed through a terrible bill that nobody even had a chance to testify on or frankly read, that's going to really damage local government funding, gives almost no real property tax relief, and actually kicks people off of the circuit breaker, which is the program to give property tax relief for low-income seniors and veterans. So it's a bill that probably does more harm than good. So really disappointing that in what could have been an amazing session ended up being a terrible session. And worst of all, of course, is that they took away ballot initiative rights that's now in the courts. So it's a sad state of affairs when the best thing we can hope for is that the courts step in and undo the terrible things done by the legislature. But that case is pending now before the Idaho Supreme Court. But I did want to end on some bright spots here, because members of our caucus did some really amazing things, and I am so proud of their work. I guess now Senator Wintrow tried really hard to increase access to contraception. She was blocked by the GOP, but she did close the loophole on marital rape, which was long overdue. Senator Ali Rabi did terrific work on tenants' rights. Senator Jamie Ward-Engelking worked incredibly hard to try to get full-day kindergarten across the finish line, came incredibly close. Representative Green got property tax protection for veterans. Representative Nakachea had long worked on extending the foster care age for youth to extend it from 18 to 21. That got signed into law, which is going to do great things for our highest risk youth. And I got through my legislation on formula coverage for children who have severe digestive disorders. Another thing I want to flag for you that maybe not everybody knows, everyone says, oh, you Democrats are only 18% of the body. How do you really get anything done? You would be amazed. There were so many bills this session, really basic governance bills in terms of the funding of core services that people count on, that the majority of House Republicans voted against, and they only passed because of the Democrats supporting them. And I'm just going to list some of these things out for you. Things like the Commission on Hispanic Affairs, the Department of Parks and Recreation, Idaho Public Television, Commission on the Arts, child care relief funds, funding for the Domestic Violence Council, the Developmental Disabilities Council, WWAMI, which is the program that it's really the only way that Idahoans can get training to be medical professionals and go to medical school, since we don't have one in Idaho. The entire Medicaid budget, and support for avalanche prevention, just to name a few. So these are all things, again, that only happened because we were here and voting on them. The majority of Republicans voted to kill these items. So we are doing important work here. But if you could send us a few more Democrats to the legislature, we could do a lot more good work. So with that, thank you for tuning in. I'm not sure when our next broadcast will be, but we appreciate you and we'll keep you posted.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Senator Michelle Stennett, the Minority Leader in the Idaho State Senate. And this is our final session podcast to you. We adjourned sine die last night, which meant that the House recessed for reasons that they probably can explain, and the Senate did adjourn sine die, which means that we fully adjourned, which means if there is a need for us to be called back to session, we would have to have a quorum. We'd have to have 18 senators to come back to do our business along with the House during the rest of the year. And we did that on purpose because we didn't want any frivolous activity that costs taxpayers money. We want to make sure that if we come back and do the people's business, that it is for very earnest reasons. And so late last night, we adjourned. And to let you know what happened in the last week, mostly that is when the legislature finally paid attention to what the people asked us to do and did a little bit of work in giving some tax relief to Idahoans. It was a larger transportation infrastructure bill which we passed, which helped state and local highway districts to be able to manage some of the work that needs to be done as it pertains to transportation. We did a small tax relief, not very much for about 60% of the Idahoans, only about $15 per month for most Idahoans, but a tiny bit of tax relief. And then we did a little bit finally for property tax relief for the greater majority of Idahoans, not as much as we would have hoped, but it was something, at least after nearly full 5 months of being here in session, that we stopped doing all of the power struggle that we came here and did, and finally did a little bit to help Idahoans, which we are pleased that we finally got some of that accomplished. Now going forward, we will be coming back likely out of session in what they call a special session, or called back in for things that the ARPA, which is the federal tax money coming into the state, will be trickling in for various levels of assistance. And I am on the committee to oversee that, along with Senator Janie Ward Ingle King on our side, for being able to manage where those funds go. So stay tuned. For the rest of the year, we will be probably dealing with those kinds of funds and perhaps coming in, hopefully not much, except where it's most needed legislatively. And we'll keep you abreast of the work we're doing through our social media and on our networks. But I want to thank you so much for participating this session. Gratefully, we're finally finished and we can go off and be in our districts to speak to the people directly. So we're signing off, and always can reach us through all of our media, and remember to stay engaged in the legislative process. Thank you.